Hello once again, everyone, and for the final time, this is Erik Sprowls, and I was the executive producer and series creator of the television series Frightening Fridays, and this is our final chapter in our series of ongoing commentaries on how we brought this particular series to life. And because this episode kicks off pretty quick, because it was continued from the last, I think it was our first real episode that was genuinely a to-be-continued episode. If you ever read this opening scroll, the creepy Reaper was cast out from the Legion of Reapers, kind of like the Knights of the Round Table, and because he had a way of wanting to take over the world, and one of the Reapers, out of the many, the Evil Reaper, one of them has finally located him in his attempt because he was becoming so widely known, and the Evil Reaper's out to thwart his efforts. So he's brainwashed Agent Scully from the Axe Files with a medallion from an ancient Reaper that was once captured by the Axe Files, and she's wearing this all-powerful medallion and has attacked the creepy Reaper, while the Evil Reaper sits in a seedy warehouse somewhere watching this whole thing. So we pick up right away here with the action in the middle of Scully endowed with these superhuman Reaper-like powers, and she is strangling the creepy Reaper, and his place is slowly falling down around him. It's on fire. It's kind of like one of the things we wanted to keep in mind was, when creepy laughs, there's always lightning. So whenever I thought it would be kind of nice when the Evil Reaper laughs, instead of just lightning, we add a lot of flame and fire to make it seem like he's really evil. And of course, Agent Scully is strangling creepy, and Mauler doesn't know how to stop her. He has to get to the bottom of things and knocks her out. And if you look closely in that prayer scene, you saw the stool that Creepy was standing on, and we had to hide it with some of the flames, so it worked out. And you saw the Evil Reaper in his lair throw the table, and that was the Evil Reaper, of course, was played in body by Ted Shudak. The voice was voiced by yours truly, Erik Sprowls, kind of like Darth Vader, James Earl Jones and David Prowse. And as the Evil Reaper's power slowly diminishes, so do the flames, and so does the fire and the real threat. And Agent Mauler, of course, has knocked out Agent Scully, and because she is unconscious, the Evil Reaper's medallion is no more. And there are a lot of effect shots in this I was proud of. This was one of them here. I like it, and this is a complicated effect because Ben had to enter behind Matt eating his Snickers bar, because if he would have entered in front, the effect of the I don't know, what do you want to call it, the lasers there or whatever's trapped Matt Colosimo would have been, you would have seen it on top of Ben. And this effect works so well because Matt is in the foreground. You simply cover up the video. It's a simple Photoshop technique in layers. And we had to slow the effect down because once Creepy starts to walk out to address the audience, if the effect would have still been going, it would have been over top of Creepy. So we kind of had it short out a little bit as though it's done its job and now it's kind of like just there. And I added it right there real quick because Creepy wasn't blocking Matt, but you saw it still taking over him. And Jeremy Mertz, who was on Damien, happened to be operating the fog machine right there and just kind of gave it a nice little blast. We finally figured it out too late as the series came to a conclusion how to operate that fog machine and give us a nice little mist instead of just filling the room with white smog. We were shooting it into the room, and what we did by the end of the series, we were actually banking it off the floor, and it created more of a London fog effect, which is what we were looking for. I was actually happy with the lighting at the end of the series. I was happy with the lighting in two instances. The very first episode I thought it was pretty nice, and the last two episodes. So by the time we got a hang of it, we were canceled. Which kind of sucked. But we did get the hang of it after a while. So we pick up here, and Creepy's trying to piece things together, how the Axe files are in the place, and Matt, of course, is frozen in time. I said, move your eyeballs, though, you know, because you're still awake. And Creepy finds the evidence of the Reaper's medallion in a photograph, and he takes Cedric aside to explain to him who the evil Reaper is, what the ancient Reaper medallion was, and how they're trying to piece together how they actually found it. Now, the interesting thing here is we had lost the photographs from the week prior, and we were like, oh, you got to be kidding. So what we did, we just took a couple pieces of paper, folded them together, and you can even tell they're not the same photographs from the last episode, because the other ones were kind of sepia toned and burned and tattered, and these are just two pieces of paper that we put together. There's a running ongoing joke here I have to explain while you see all the things happening to Agent Muller. The speech that Creepy and Cedric are talking about was kind of an inside joke, because we knew we were going to be canceled or probably not coming back. We weren't really sure. We were kind of like 80-20 sure that this was the last episode. So it was written for a cliffhanger, but as it turns out, it was kind of an unresolved cliffhanger. So the speech that we're giving here is kind of reminiscent of the way I was let go from the university, about the doctorate in PhD Reaperness, and I didn't have the doctorate, so Creepy was kind of cast out, similar to my situation where I was kind of cast out because I didn't have a doctorate. And I kind of didn't like the way I had shot that after all, because we kept cutting back and forth between the comedy with Agent Muller, Gigi, and Igor instead of listening to the speech, so you really knew what was going on. It was a little distracting. I was a little disappointed in myself for doing that. His idea, Jeremy's idea of the finger puppets were awesome, and this kind of explains, I'll explain to you right now a little bit about the whole college thing. Everybody was asking, well, how is Damien in college? But when he first comes on the show, he's supposed to be a 6-year-old boy. But then he said in another episode, 2 episodes prior to this, he did some films in college he wasn't particularly proud of. It really doesn't make sense, and that's what Theater of the Absurd is. The only television series I ever saw do Theater of the Absurd was the old Batman series. And, the Joker has Batman and Robin captured, and instead of just killing them, he puts them in a giant hourglass that's filling up with sand, and when the sand fills up, they'll be dead. It's like, yeah, okay. It's very comic book-like, Theater of the Absurd. There was an episode of the old Batman show where they were putting a piano music maker and chopping up the notes, and in order that they wouldn't get chopped to death, they had to sing the notes exactly so the chopper would chop around them. It doesn't really make sense, and I think that's part of the charm of the show. And of course, when he refines the ancient medallion, you find out that the powers have been removed from Agent Scully, and he has to decide what to do with it. But this was the Evil Reaper's plan from the beginning, was to put a bomb inside the castle that would destroy our heroes. And this is a little piece of trivia. This is the only time, I think, in the entire series that the entire main cast is in a shot all at once. I mean, there have been stars that have come and gone, obviously the Evil Reaper played by Ted Shudak, and Joe DeMola as the Stooge, and various other characters, and Heather Sage played Gwendolyn and that kind of thing. But these are the ones who were with the show from the very beginning, and this is the only time, I think, in the entire series, and we kind of saved it for the last episode, that they were in one shot at one time. And it was very complicated to do, because especially when community theater, we'd be shooting a scene at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that Ben might call me and say, hey, I can't be there until 6. So we'd have to shoot other scenes that didn't have Ben as Cedric in them, or vice versa. Or there was a time that Leah had to do things with her dance team, and she couldn't be there at 8 o'clock at night, so if we didn't get her stuff done by 8, we had to rewrite scenes that the scene involving Leah was now going to be played by, Igor, filling in or doing something. So it was kind of difficult to do. So this was the one time that it worked out where all, 2, 4, 7 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 characters were all on the set at one time. And that's a real close-up of the medallion. That's some cheap piece of costume jewelry we got from a costume shop downtown. I think it's actually a vampire necklace that a vampire wears for the costume. And we just had it in a close-up. And this, of course, is behind... on the other side of the vault door is that room that the Evil Reaper is watching in real life, where it's supposed to be some seedy warehouse, whereabouts unknown. And of course, Joe DeMola is playing the stooge in the background, and he does a great job. I said to Joe, you got to be like rat-like. Think like Beavis, like, yeah, what are we doing? How come you're always losing and Creepy's already winning? You know, what's that all about? You know, and actually, whenever you hear him in the background doing the impersonations, some of it's him and some of it's me, sped up. To make it sound like Beavis and Butthead, like, yeah, why are we always losing? I don't understand why we're always winning. Gigi's banging, she's really hot. We're on a Diet Pepsi. I'll drink Diet Pepsi, you know. So those kind of things are kind of cute that we intricated into the series. This was a difficult shot, shooting with that camcorder. You know, the close-ups of the camera, like that right there, were difficult to pull off because when you shot up in the air, you're shooting offset into the lighting grid of the real studio. And of course, the Evil Reaper realizes his plans are foiled and self-destructs the camera. And Creepy, of course, thinks, well, he's won because he has the Reaper's medallion, in which case he does not. It was the ancient Reaper that was captured, and the Evil Reaper still has his medallion. And you have, I like how the Joe DeMola, who's the stooge, gets the idea to blow up the medallion and kill everybody. Oh, yeah, the medallion. And of course, the Evil Reaper hears him, and he's like, oh, that's a good idea. You know, I'll just do that. I'll self-destruct the medallion once it achieves the highest power and blow up the castle, you know. And that, of course, was supposed to be the cliffhanger. And, well, there's the fire that I had talked about instead of the lightning. I thought it was a nice touch. So whenever the Evil Reaper laughs, you see fire instead of lightning. But that was the point. We were supposed to have a cliffhanger in case we came back for the second season, which we did not. And I had to re-edit things at the last second to make it make sense. So, but we'll get more into that once we reach that part of the episode. Now, this was interesting. This was the joke. This was the joke that we wrapped up. Everybody has seen this door lead to everywhere. We've had trick-or-treaters come to it. It was supposed to be the outside. It's supposed to be the video vault. It's supposed to be the bathroom in the last episode. And everybody came to me and said, you know, it's interesting how we use that door for everything. And I said, you know what? That could actually be one of the jokes on the show. You know, since it is theater of the absurd. We explain that door that well, instead of people laughing at us saying, yeah, it's the same door, we laugh with them. So we incorporated it as a line of dialogue into the show. And of all people, Gigi is the one who notices it. Like, did you notice that door goes everywhere? So we actually wrote it into the script as an inside joke that we would be in on with the audience. Like, oh yeah, it does go everywhere. And then they find out that they put the X-Files agents in there to gas them, which was supposed to be the gas chamber. And it turns out they put them outside because it's the door to everywhere. When they opened the door before, it was the gas chamber or the video vault. But when they put them in there, they're like, ah, there they go. And they've actually put them outside in the yard, and they've consequently escaped. And then Jeremy came up with the brilliant idea of a great line here.
What a convenient plot twist.
What a convenient plot twist. And I thought that was really nice. That was almost genius. Because we were in on the joke with the audience, you know. It is a convenient plot twist, you know. And we thought that was just hysterical. You know, we were just in on it. And of course, you know, Creepy's starting to do the math here. Well, where'd that... You know, Cedric said, well, how is it that he still had a power over Agent Scully, the Evil Reaper? How did he hold some kind of power over Agent Scully if this was his medallion?
At the turn of the century, there was a rogue Reaper.
Like yourself? Yes.
And because this episode is part of our mythology and not a standalone, he has to... Creepy finally realizes that it wasn't his medallion at all, and it belonged to one of the original Reapers, the Ancient Reaper, who got captured in the late 1800s, and that this is his medallion and not the Evil Reaper's. You know, before I forget, I just wanted to say too, this was a wonderful series to produce with these students. We had our chances to do costuming and special effects and problem solve, and it was a wonderful way for everybody to get together and learn theater, blocking, technical directing. This show had it all. You could do television switching. It really was a weekly sitcom, because when you broke it down, we actually shot about a half hour of material each week, and we would have an hour and a half movie, some public domain movie, and things really worked out. It was an amazing show to produce, and it taught students, even myself, I had to problem solve on several ideas. And we had a writing staff that got together each week to produce these puppies. So it was a great experience, I think, all the way around for everybody.
Honeydew.
Now that honeydew joke that Creepy brings up there was a running gag all the way back to episode 7. And this is 11. And I had this idea, and I brought it up at the staff meeting when we were writing this, because I saw a Family Guy episode where Peter Griffin was fighting this guy in a chicken costume. And they had a great big giant fight. And it was over. And then maybe the next season or several episodes later, the chicken walked into the shot and Peter would pick up the fight right where he left off. And unless you were a real fan of the show, you're sitting there thinking, well, what the hell is this? But Seth MacFarlane, it was brilliant in what he did, because he realized that he was making these shows for the fans, not just for general people surfing, but for the fans who got the show resurrected. So I liked that joke. So the honeydew joke was a joke that was incorporated all the way back in the episode where Cedric married Gwen, and Cedric said something like, well, we can't elope. Like Creepy says, you guys should elope. And Cedric says, we can't elope. And Creepy said, oh, well, honeydew, referring to the fact that Cedric had said honeydew, like a type of fruit, and he had said cantaloupe and honeydew. And it was a stupid joke that was retarded, but it was funny because we connected it for 4 episodes later, and I thought it was a nice little tactic for the real fans of the show, that he'd still be laughing at that stupid joke 4 episodes old. And I'll never forget this, too. This coat created such a controversy amongst the writing staff when we wrote this. Most of the writing staff that wrote this episode were in their 20s. I was not even around when they did this, but apparently back in the 1920s, teens or 30s, something like that, when people went to college, they would wear these fur coats. And it was like something I guess you wore when you were in college. And I said, well, that's Creepy. He's going to dress him up like to get ready for college, because Damien was going to college. So Creepy pulls out this fur jacket that was donated, I think, by Ben Willis's, who plays Cedric, his mother in real life. And he would wear this. And the writing staff said to me, we don't get the joke. And even when I explained it, they said, that's not funny. But I was pretty sure that it was going to work. And we fought about this in that meeting for like an hour over this one joke. And I said, people, it should not be this difficult. We're just going to do it, end story. And I know that there are times that I like to be a democratic director, and I listen to people quite a bit. But I was so disappointed in that musical episode where I listened to everybody and said, yeah, let's dress Igor up in a dress. I hated that because in retrospect it was the biggest mistake I made on this show. I'll never do it again. And I said to myself, you know, I listen to some people. I generally listen to people a lot. But when I was so disappointed by that particular episode and the effect, because I really wished Igor would have been singing to Igor instead of Igor singing to Igor dressed up in this ridiculous dress, except for his mouth that you couldn't see the effect or understand what he was doing. I made the call, and I said, you know what, people? I'm making the call on this one. We're going to do the jacket. Let's move on. And that was after an hour of bickering from the staff. And it was hysterical because in retrospect you look back and say, oh my God, there's that stupid coat. And the joke plays well, and I think the problem was the writing staff just weren't old enough to get the joke, but there were older people out there that would get the joke. And that's another reason I was making this, because we had an older audience as well. And of course, Damien is packing for college with his beer-guzzling hat and SpongeBob and all the stuffed animals. And a lot of these, I don't remember who all owned these. I know Leah brought some in. I know the SpongeBob, I think, was Jody Reichert, who was the technical director. Leah, who plays Gigi. I think the duck was hers. And Heather Sage, who was Gwendolyn. Even though her character was knocked off at this point, she was still helping out his crew. So I think some of this might have belonged to these guys. I'm not really sure. And I think this might have been an ad-lib. Jeremy talking to the duck, and the duck talks back and tells him to kill Ben. I don't know why we did that. Just because it's a horror show, really. So, of course, Cedric walks on set. And we came up with the idea of awkward moments. And we had that idea in the last episode when it had Ben, or Cedric and Creepy, in a restroom stall, taking a leak, standing next to each other, and it was just one of those awkward moments that happen in real life. You just kind of stand there and, you know, it's like, what are you supposed to say? So, how you doing? Taking a leak next to me. It's very uncomfortable. So there's that moment of uncomfortable awkwardness here when they don't really have anything else to say, and Damien, who has been hearing the voices of the stuffed animal, for whatever reason, it was just a joke, wasn't supposed to go anywhere, just for whatever reason punches out Cedric and knocks him flat. Now, Ben has told me, he's a big guy like myself, he's about 300 pounds, he said, and he drops to his knees here like a sack of groceries. And, you know, and that's a concrete floor, so when you get a 300-pound dude dropping to his knees, his bone knees on a concrete floor, it hurts. And he did it, and he was a trooper, and I had to take my hat off to him. He did a good job. So segment 7 begins. A lot of these castle shots, people were asking me too, how come all the shots are different at castles? And I said, well, they're all different angles. Some of those are the same castle. I've gotten, they're a castle in Ireland, in England, different places, and we got them from public domain use. And of course, the X-Files, they're mean in business now. They break in and they're like, all right, enough's enough. We finally caught you. This transmission's going to end. And I tell you what, this was made pre-Virginia Tech. The Virginia Tech shooting that happened 2 years after this, in 3 years, I think it was 2007. You could never do this on campus now. These guns were props provided by Ted Shudak, and I think they're just like little air pistols that shoot pellets or something like that, but you could never do this now. This was all pre-Virginia Tech with the shooting down there and on a college campus, and I'd be thrown in jail for doing this if I did this kind of thing now. I mean, you have to really be able to tell that they're props, you know, and that year they shot a movie, Devil's Dandruff, on the campus that had a lot of gunplay in it too, and you could probably never do anything like that nowadays. Public safety would have a coronary over all of that. And this is a joke, again, Theater of the Absurd. They finally got the drop on the Creepy Reaper, and he talks him into having a drink. They're like, oh, okay. And that's, again, Theater of the Absurd. It's a convenient plot twist. We can do anything we want on this show. Who cares? It was fun. And, of course, he gets him to drink the amnesia juice. And I really like that piece of dialogue where Cedric says, well, how come I never knew about this? And Creepy said, exactly. That was enough, you know? It's like, yeah. And it's because he's probably drugged Cedric in the past. And I like this, and this was Mike's ad-lib. Thanks for coming to my housewarming party. That's my house buddy. Well, goodbye. Thanks for the gifts. And that was one of my favorite creepy moments on the show. I loved it. And this is that amnesia juice joke I've seen used after this on other horror host shows. I don't think we were probably the first one to use it, but a colleague of mine who does the Midnight Monster Hop. It's a show that was born in 2006, a couple years after this. And he did a joke, as segment 8 begins here, the final segment, where he did amnesia juice. It was just done differently. But it was similar to what we had done. And I thought it was a nice compliment to us. Parody is the sincerest form of flattery. And of course, this is our final segment of Frightening Fridays ever. And we were doing this for several reasons. Jeremy Mertz, who plays Damien, was leaving the university permanently, but we wanted to leave it open in case he ever wanted to come back on the show ever again. So we were just going to say he was away at college. That's how we were writing him out at the end of this year. The same way with the Axe Files. Christina was leaving. Matt Colosimo was graduating. So we were writing their storyline out. And we did this show this way for a multitude of reasons. Mike DeShane, this was his freshman year, and he could have came back and done this for 3 more seasons as the Creepy Reaper. Plus, even when he graduated, we could have put somebody else in that outfit and had the same host and had somebody else playing, but he'd still look the same. So we established this so all the characters could rotate, and we could bring new ones in and old ones out. Eventually, if I would have stayed on, that even Gigi and Igor and Cedric could have rotated out. We could have rotated new blood in, and this is the way we were going to do it. So we were writing out that Damien was going to college, and that way he could have came back if he wanted to. I like when he busts back in the door here. And but for our purposes, he was just leaving, and. Again, he could have came back anytime he wanted. And that was the fun thing about this show. We loved that kind of door being open. That, just because you're graduating doesn't mean you're not part of the Frightening Fridays family anymore. You could always come back and do another role if you wanted to. So, and this was our part where we were writing out the Axe Files. We drugged them with the amnesia juice. They forgot everything, and they were going to close the case. In fact, there's a scene in this where there goes Scully. That's her final appearance, and she's out the door just like Damien had his. That's our technical director, Jody Reichert, making a cameo. And of course, this is the picture that comes back to haunt Agent Mahler. The picture that Damien took whenever he was frozen. And it said, greetings from beautiful Hawaii. And, it wasn't supposed to mean anything. It's just kind of a cute joke. And he's not even sure what it was about because he was drugged with the amnesia juice. So he's closing the file here. In fact, there is a line in this dialogue that he's writing. He says, there's nothing going on at the castle. All is well. And it was just a rumor. And there's nothing going on there. And as the screen refreshes, you'll see at the end there's he types out case closed. And originally, I think this was even brought up that we were originally going to type case closed with a question mark, but by this time I put this episode together. In fact, this episode and the last episode, 10 and 11, never aired on BUTV because I had left the college. These were put together specifically for the release of this DVD. And because they never aired, when it came down to typing case closed with the question mark, I took the question mark out because I knew we weren't coming back. And Yeah, of course, it wasn't on the air. Now, if we would have been renewed, I would have put the question mark there because they could have left the door open for Mahler and Scully to conceivably come back on the show for a guest appearance in trying to, find out continuing efforts about the Reaper. So this is our final cast call with our main group of 4 numbskulls. That the medallion is building up to detonation. And again, this was supposed to be our season cliffhanger where it blew up part of the castle and you didn't know who survived, if anybody survived, that kind of thing. And we would have dealt with it in the summer and how we would have rectified it the following season. But as it turned out, this was our last episode. I said, well, how are we going to get out of that? Because it looks like everybody gets killed. So in the effect shot at the end, when it actually does build up to detonation and it takes out a chunk of the castle, I repeated the dialogue that Creepy and Ben had said earlier here. Creepy, I think, says they're trying to figure out why the medallion's making some noise. And I think Creepy says, oh, it's probably just one of 100 reasons. It might just be building up to gain some power. Maybe it's self-destruct mode. And Cedric says, oh, well, I guess that would make sense. So I repeated that 2 lines of dialogue at the end because Creepy says, oh, it might have just been building up to self-destruct mode. And because it's obvious that that's what happened, Cedric's line is, that would make sense. And then we roll the credits. So you know that they're okay, that they can still go on forever in trying to take over the world. The evil plan has been foiled, and they're still alive. And this is the effect shot. And that was a tough shot to do because, see, after all that fire and flame, see that little white pillar rising into the sky that's pumping out smoke? That's an effect of smoke coming out of that wing of the castle. And I had to put that in as a post shot too. So it was done where even if we would have came back late notice for another season, we could have rebuilt the set fairly easy and said, well, because the bomb took out everything. So we just built a whole new set. And that's our final episode of Frightening Fridays. I hope you've enjoyed this commentary. Thank you for listening to me for this whole slew of DVDs. And now go back and watch them from the beginning. That's the best thing you can do. I added this little tombstone here with fog because this is our last episode. I wanted to do something special for the last one. And this was a TV show that was a lot of fun to do. I met a lot of good people, a lot of good friends. I still keep in touch with all of them today. And it was a great time in our lives. We had a lot of fun doing it. And I hope that they got a little something out of it too. I know I did. So the best thing I can tell you right now is go back and watch it from the beginning and enjoy for posterity. Bad luck and worse dishes. Erik Sprowls, take care.